Także oddaję głos tutaj na temat przyszłości IT, wspólnie z Puppetem, Andreas Wilke. Bardzo proszę.
So yes, hey, my presentation is there, wonderful. Hi, I'm Andreas. I'm from Puppet, no longer from Puppet Labs. So if you didn't know, we changed the name a little. We made it much shorter, so you only have to say Puppet. I'm a technical solution engineer working for Puppet now since more than a year. I'm covering, together with Christoph, maybe you can stand up. He's the country manager for Puppet. We are both working for the region Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and also Poland. Because of Christoph is from Poland, so he knows your language better than me. I know only some basics, so sorry for that. I have to do this in English, this presentation. So yes, beside the thing that we changed the name, it doesn't look that good. There's a background in the presentation. You will not see it, don't know why. But basically what you can say, why we do exist, why we are so successful as a company, basically what you can say today, every business is made out of software. So there is no more company on this planet that, maybe some small companies, that do not rely on software. So, for example, we have companies that heavily rely on software. If the software fails, they do not do business. But nearly everything else you do in your normal life is based on software. It could be your watch, which could be an Apple Watch that needs to have some specific configurations. It could be a laptop, your iPad, whatever you're using. It's completely based on software. And software needs to be controlled. Software did also change our life, how we live, how we do things, how we order something. So today I do order things I never did order 5 years ago, if I think back. But now it really feels like we in the IT sector are coming to a stage where the IT that is being managed today can no longer be managed the way like we did during the past years. So when I take a look at the presentation I saw before, it's getting more and more complex. The system is made of so many pieces, and you have to think about all of them. But if you do this with, let's say, a traditional way of managing your IT infrastructure, you no longer be capable of adopting these modern technologies, as you have to think about a lot of things. And I thought to myself, okay, how can I explain Puppet as best as possible? As I said, Christoph and myself, we are responsible for Switzerland customers as well. So every time when I'm arriving at the Switzerland airport, I see a lot of watches. And what I like about the watches is it's quite similar to what you do in your IT. So a watch like this one is a real complex construct. And it's similar to the things you offer to your customers as an IT department. So what does that mean? If you destroy this watch, not destroy, made all the pieces is made out of, you will find a lot of pieces. And all these pieces need to work together. If some of these pieces don't work, your whole watch doesn't work. Yeah? It will not show you the service it should show you, which is time. And what is the challenge with that your IT service today is so complex, like a watch, as an example, a Switzerland watch. It is exactly this, what the guy is doing here in this picture. And I think this is the most important slide of the whole presentation, because it talks about all the challenges our customers are focusing today when they're managing their IT with such complex services like they did for the last decade. So as you can see, the guy is changing something manually inside the watch. But maybe he doesn't know that it could immediately affect another wheel on the left side, because he doesn't know or understand all the relationships inside the watch. So the watch should do what it should do, shows the time. But if you compare this to your IT services, it's quite similar. So if you change something, and I've tons of examples from customers that told me, someone did change something here, and one of our business critical application, which we didn't know that relies on this service, did fail. and you're losing money, you're losing business, and you're also losing trust in your IT service. Because at the end, you're delivering the service to a customer. If it's based on an SLA, you need to make sure that the customer is satisfied. Let me give you an example. If my watch will not show me the correct time twice, I will no longer use it. Will you? I do not trust a watch that will not deliver me the service I expect to be delivered. So why are you doing this for your IT services? Why are you still managing things manually that can impact your whole IT service at all? Some things are made better in the past, so we have a lot of customers invested a lot in workflow tools, in scripting, and things like that. But there's also a challenge with that. So, for example, the script the guy could use as a replacement for the manual things he's doing could work for the wheel on the right side, but does it also work on the wheel on the left side? Today, you're not focusing one operating system, you're not focusing one middleware, one application. You're focusing a lot of different technologies that need to work together. And it's hard to find, let's say, a scripting engine that can handle all of these systems and make your service available again. So there is a better approach of doing this. So you're no longer facing all these challenges that are highlighted here. And just to make this complete, your services today is not like one service. You're producing many services. And all these services, which are complex in itself, rely on another service which is also complex in itself. So you have a lot of relationships inside your data center you try to manage. So we think as Puppet that needs to be changed. Current studies tell us that only 15% of the current IT environments are automated. So 85% of IT environments are still done manually or via scripts or templates, whatever you use. And this needs to change. But it's not only Puppet as a tool that needs to change, it is also a change within your organization, within your process, within your people, how you are managing IT today. Because what I learned during the last 10 years is process tools around IT to not hit a failure. Because everyone is afraid hitting a failure in the production environment. So we build a lot of frameworks around IT, like ITIL. Yeah? Because you don't want to implement a change that could produce an outage in your IT environment. But we think this is not the right approach. You should not be afraid of applying changes in your environment. You should automatically test these changes against all your IT services before it's going into production. And this is exactly the way that needs to change beside Puppet as well. But it's another topic. I think you can do a lot of presentations about this stuff. Let's focus more on Puppet and why we think we are doing the right approach. So we are not new. Puppet Labs itself is on the market since 10 years, and it's a proven technology. We changed the name to Puppet, but it's mainly driven by the open source community, and the open source community made us great in this sector. Because Puppet, it's just a technology, but it's been adopted by a huge, huge community. I think the last numbers we know is that we have 80,000 community members that are driving Puppet to being adopted into whatever kind of technology you're using inside your IT data center. And what is the major value we give to you as a customer? I think it's time. We give you the time back to focus on the things that are important for your business. You should not care about how to configure specific things in the IT environment. How can I implement a change? You should focus on your business, because that is where your money comes from. And we give you the time back, because if you're using Puppet, you automate your whole IT infrastructure, and you get the time back to focus on exactly these things. And we make this very simplified, so you can start Puppet by just downloading something, a Puppet module, and immediately see the effect you get out if you're using Puppet compared to manual configuration management. And we can do this with high scale. So we have a lot of reference customers. One of them is also based in Switzerland, the CERN Institute, is using Puppet for 150,000 nodes, which is nearly impossible to manage the system manually. So why people are choosing us, and this is also a reason why we changed the name from Puppet Labs into Puppet, because we do no longer see us as just one technology out in the market. We are being adopted. We have proven many times that Puppet helps you to get a reliable system that scales and brings you also things like security and compliance back to your infrastructure. And we think we are the leading platform in this sector. I don't want to name the other companies going with us this way, but we are more or less the standard inside IT environments to do configuration management. And what you also should not forget, in the room beside us, someone from Docker is telling you something about how the IT data center will be in the future or today. Maybe you already adopted Docker technology in your IT infrastructure. But you should not forget that most of the companies are not in a green field and they don't use Docker from a start. But we as Puppet, for example, we started a project, we called it Blue Shift, to adopt these new technologies, but also don't forget the old technology, the old infrastructure in your environment. So we are building the bridge for this gap between the new technologies and the old technologies, so you can manage both. And what I personally say is, once again, Switzerland, so it's a Switzerland presentation. We are the pocket knife, the Switzerland pocket knife, that is capable to automate and configure everything in your IT environment. As long as there's an API, a SOAP, or whatever, a command line, we can automate it with Puppet. If there is not a module available on Puppet, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So what I highly can recommend for you, if you start with Puppet or are new to Puppet, is to go into the community and talk about what you did, to hear what the community did. Because what we deliver on our Puppet Forge as a central repository, what you can manage with Puppet, is just a small piece of what has been already solved in the community. So is there anyone here that already did develop some Puppet? Are they available on Forge? Good. Yes or no? Okay, good. I try to convince every customer to upload it on Forge, so everyone can use it. So we do this automation thing with 4 simple steps. So what the first one, let me get to this, is you specify with the Puppet language the desired state of your configuration that should be applied to the system. And the Puppet language, or the syntax we use, it's so easy that nearly everyone can read what is going on inside Puppet compared to traditional scripts, where you have to first know the scripting technology and understand what is going on. And we all know that most of the scripts are not well documented. So the idea with Puppet is not that everyone starts to write his own Puppet code, because for most of the things, there's already a Puppet module available, which makes it much easier for you to adopt a use case that has already been solved by another person. So what else to mention here is that when it comes to automation and going from the old traditional approach into the new modern DevOps approach, so when I'm committing something, I need to do automatic testing against my system. And Puppet has exactly the capabilities to give you the testing capabilities to test your own Puppet code against itself, that nothing will break in your production IT before it gets applied. And as I said, the Puppet Forge is the main thing behind Puppet, because we try to make it as easy as possible for new customers, existing customers to adopt Puppet technology. What else do you get if you're using Puppet? So you know exactly what is happening in my environment. So who did change something inside the system? So the intention with Puppet is not to do this once, the configuration you specified in the simplified language. It is the intention to regularly check if something was changed. Maybe you have another tool, an old script that is running every, 10 days, and change the configuration back, and you never thought that the script is still alive or is running by itself. Then Puppet will enforce the configuration back to what you defined. And you immediately will see what had happened to environment. You can include this into a monitoring solution. You can include this into, like you will see here, Splunk. So we developed with Splunk together an application, so you will immediately see what is going on in my Puppet environment. Is something wrong? Is something changed? And what you also should not forget is, many customers, like you, are rely on compliance requirements. So especially in banking, financing things. For example, I always hear PCI compliance. There is a module available that exactly checks the PCI compliance against your current configuration. So if you have to do an audit, you do no longer have to stop your normal work and only work 2 weeks to finish my audit report. If you're using Puppet, you have specified the compliance requirement for PCI in Puppet language, and Puppet checks it against continuously, every 30 minutes. So you can go back to your auditor and tell them, here is my Puppet code, here is it how it is applied to my system, and you're compliant, which makes it also fast for you. What else? This is quite new for someone who is using Puppet since a long time. There was a missing component in Puppet that gives you the capability to get better control of how our change is applied to the system. And this is the orchestration engine we deliver now with Puppet in the core technology. So you can exactly specify when and where and on which system should a change be applied. But there are additional things I will show you later. I don't know how much time is left, because for the talk at all. If nobody say anything, I will talk endlessly. No. Yeah, as I said, security is a huge topic today. So if there is a new patch available, if there is a bug inside whatever component and you want to immediately apply something, Puppet can help you here. Yeah? Because what you do not know is configuration management is also a security issue. Let's give you an easy example. If, for example, you're installing a web service like Apache, but you do not allow that service should be available via HTTP, but it should be available encrypted via HTTPS, you could define that in Puppet, but do you know that the system itself is not running still on HTTP? Who can tell me that without using technology like Puppet, that this configuration is applied? So with Puppet, you know exactly what security configuration is applied to the system, and you can be sure that it is applied to the system. And you can also increase the interval of how many times Puppet should run, an hour, every 30 minutes, every minute if you want, to be sure that your system is secure and compliant with your regulations. So the idea of Puppet is not just to automate things like operating systems, like middleware, like application. The idea with Puppet is to make it available everywhere. So we are working, or we worked a lot with network vendors in the past, as an example. So you can also use Puppet on network devices, the same language like you do use for operating system, middleware, and application you can use for network devices. We're working with storage vendors, so you can use Puppet to start automating your storage devices. And we're also working on new technologies, like Docker, like Mesosphere, like Kubernetes, like CoreOS. So if you're already using Puppet in your old IT infrastructure, you can immediately reuse it in the new modern world. And you will see more and more integrations into different technology sections. So typically, when customers start with Puppet, I always get the question, okay, I understand I can do everything with Puppet, but where should I start? So our recommendation is, it doesn't make sense to automate your application layer if the operating system layer is not automated. What benefit will you get out if you can deploy a JBoss system within 5 minutes, but you have to wait 4 weeks until your virtual machine is there, or your physical device, whatever. So what we say is typically you should start from bottom to top. So that means you have to start with your operating system, automate everything that can be done with operating system management. And then you go up this level with middleware, application, provisioning, to automate the whole life cycle of your machines. And then, as a last step, and I will show you that a little later, is the application orchestration. So today, none of the application is only available on one system, it's distributed between more than one. So, how Puppet works? For someone who's using Puppet a long time, there is also something new here, because we are changing a little bit the way how Puppet in general works. So the classic mode, I call this the classic mode. It is the mode how Puppet has been used since the last 9-10 years. So basically, the Puppet agent, where Puppet runs, is starting every 30 minutes. It's sending a lot of inventory information to the central master system, and the master system uses it to compile the catalog, which is basically the configuration for the agent that should be applied locally to the system. And then it will be sent to the agent does its Puppet run, and send back the report to the master. But why should we do this catalog compilation every 30 minutes again and again and again and again? Are you changing your environment every 30 minutes like Amazon? They are doing 26,000 changes per day? I think no. So it makes definitely sense if the agent has already his current configuration as a catalog locally cached, it can reuse it for the next time. Why should he always get a new catalog if nothing did change? So this is the first effect you will see now with the new versions of Puppet, that you have the capability to let Puppet run in a cached catalog mode. And only if you want to apply a change to the system, you can trigger Puppet to force getting a new catalog. So it is doing this, let's say, classic mode thing again, getting a new catalog and apply it to the system. And then, after that, it stays into this local mode and runs for it locally. Why is that so important? It's so important because, as I said, I tried to add the watches here again. The beamer resolution is not that good, but okay. You see that the watches, which are complex constructs in itself, are similar to things like you offer or you are managing inside your IT environment. So here you see a banking application which is made out of many, many components. So like, for example, an API is called, the WebSphere instance is behind that, and an F5 load balancer. And what we do now with Puppet is, we give you the capability within the Puppet language to describe exactly what your IT services or applications are made out of. So what are the components we are using for this type of application? And you defining the dependencies between the nodes that are being used in your application. So Puppet knows exactly, okay, the API is being used by WebSphere. The WebSphere instance is using a database on MySQL or whatever, Microsoft SQL, and it's using a F5 load balancer in front. And this gives us the capability, if every agent is running with a last known good state configuration, we can tell Puppet exactly how it should apply changes to this environment. Yeah? So you define that, you do not see this here, but this Windows machine is sharing a Microsoft SQL Server database and the port and the user and the password with an AX web server instance. And the web server instance is producing another service which is HTTP, which is necessary for the load balancer to know where it should load balance this kind of service. And that is exactly what we changed during the last releases to give you much more control and capabilities of how Puppet and changes will be applied to your system. Yeah, basically that's it. We're working on a lot of other technologies beside that. I'm not allowed to tell you anything about that. But if you would like to see more and how Puppet works and what are the difference between open source and maybe our commercial add-on for Puppet, Christoph and myself are more than happy to give you a short presentation on our desk. So thank you, and yeah, have a nice rest.